saw it in Mother Jones. So, actually, we have to take bicycles a lot, which for a family of 4 is kind of tough on the highway, but I figure if I accidentally get killed, that'll just be one less human hurting the planet.
One of Extinction Rebellion's posts on their Instagram actually claims they don't shame and blame individuals.
Ice caps are melting because of you and your stupid car!
And I feel like that's a semantics argument to mean specific people, because if you're upholding IPCC climate science, regardless of whether or not it is flawed, whether or not there really truly is a consensus on it, which there isn't, then what you're actually upholding is the idea of man-made climate change. You're saying that it's humanity's fault for the way that things have been done, which is shaming and blaming individuals for existing. I'm just saying, they automated mass consumerism after World War II through the use of television and the media and everything else. They automated it, and then they blamed the people for being consumers and for existing and for buying all this BS instead of the mega corporations that produce it, the governments that legalize it and allow them to produce it, and the media that's paid to propagandize it. You want to fix the planet, some very fundamental things are going to have to change about how things are being done. Living in this time where they're lowering standards, they're forcing austerity, and they're making it to where people can barely get by, change isn't going to happen with that. That's not going to work ever.
Experts have a consensus around getting net zero by 2050. You're saying 2025. One critic has said it would mean the confiscation of petrol cars, state rationing of meat, and limiting families to one flight every 5 years. And that was actually on a 2030 target. Do you agree with that?
I agree that we need to do whatever it takes.
I don't think that ordinary people should be flying at all. I think it should be purely for diplomatic and scientific purposes.
But you don't think anybody should be allowed to fly apart from diplomats?
Well, I don't know about allowed to fly. I think it should be just made too expensive.
So driving and going on an airline becomes the playground of the elite and the rich.
If our cities were constructed in a way that meant you didn't have to travel very, very far, then actually cycling and walking would be not only getting you to where you needed to be, but
what about if I want to go on holiday to Austria or say Australia because I want to go and visit some family? How do I get there?
By train?
And a lot of those major corporations are the ones that have funded major environmental movements in the past. It's something called conscience laundering. That's what they do. And then those movements continue to point the finger at the individual and not the said corporations who just so happen to fund them. Do you see how that works? That's how it works. If they really wanted to change anything, you would have to start at the top with the way things are being done. Not at the individual level, telling a person who drinks out of a plastic straw it's their fault. And the highlight of that is the fact that you now have scientific publications like MIT, Technology Review, and stuff like that. They're coming out now and they're saying if we switch to fully organic, that's going to be bad for climate change. I mean, this is the height of idiocracy. That is the height of stupidity. And that's what they're pushing. That's the science, right? That's the scientism area. They're coming out and saying that stuff. And another thing I want to point out too is they don't really seem to be too concerned about the insane pollution of our environment by man-made electromagnetic frequencies, which affect every single living thing that exists here and our environment and our weather and everything. It affects everything. But they don't talk about stuff like that. They don't talk about the stuff that actually needs to be focused on to make real change happen. The Extinction Rebellion got kicked off on Halloween 2018. Well, back in June 2018, it came out that the UN was running out of cash and facing urgent cuts, according to the head of the UN. He said that the UN had never faced such a difficult cash flow situation this early in a calendar year, and that the cash shortfall was unlike any that they'd experienced previously, and that they should not have to suffer repeated brushes with bankruptcy. So I think it's really weird timing that happened in June 2018, and by October you suddenly have a climate crisis and we're all gonna die. And now there's this movement that's getting kicked off. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a little bit, and the movement is pushing UN Agenda 21, 2030. They're pushing teaching IPCC climate science in classrooms.
I rise today to recognize the importance of teaching climate change in schools.
I mean, it's just right there.
Extinction Rebellion not only seems keen to push the United Nations IPCC as if they've never heard of ClimateGate and the falsification of scientific data and all the red flags that raises about everything else that's supposedly factual, but they're promoting and ushering in Agenda 21, the 2030 Accord, and all these other agreements, despite the fact that it turns the planet into one giant technocratic control grid. As Windows on the World points out, Gail Braddock, one of, if not the main organizer of #Extinction Rebellion, is a former director and now in charge of program development at Citizens Online, where she works as a, quote, digital inclusion strategy specialist. The board of directors at Citizen Online also contains a former head of ExxonMobil, as well as Lord Anthony Tudor St. John, who's heavily invested in the same satellite and aerospace industries, who will be involved in the rollout of planetary-wide 5G coverage. Strange bedfellows our media darling environmental activists keep: oil barons, plutocrats, financial oligarchs, MPs, lords of the realm, etc. The climate change policies Extinction Rebellion are pushing for Agenda 21/2020 are the survival strategies of the oligarchs in the post-oil, sustainable future they plan for us. Smart grid compact cities, 5G connected to everything, monitoring us and controlling those who misbehave, much of the land becoming an eco-reserve, a no-go zone. And that is what they're pushing for.